Siddharth Anand's Tararampam, Ban Baja Barat, and Bewakufiyan. He directed Ishq-Zade and Dawat-e-Ishq. He has directed the television serials Lavanya and worked in New Delhi as a camera person with NDTV. We are also pleased to introduce film critic Mr. Mayank Shekhar. He is a journalist, author, film critic, and a national cultural editor with Hindustan Times. He previously worked under Mumbai Mirror and Midday. He also used to write a blog, Fat for Thought, at the Hindustan Times website. He has won Ramnath Goenka Award for Excellence in Journalism and is also one of the 21 recipients of the 5th Young Achievers Award by the Indo-American Film Society for his work as a film critic. He runs a cinema website called w14.com. We now invite filmmaker Mr. Habib Faisal and critic Mr. Mayank Shekhar for their discussion on the movie Do Duni Char.
Yeah, so there is no confusion. My name is Mayank. That's Habib Faisal. Welcome to the talk or a panel discussion, as it will hopefully turn out to be. We'll get people involved from the audience as well on the film Do Duni Char. This is a very unique film component in a literature festival. And the last year that I came here, we watched the film and that was followed by a discussion, which was great because the same audience that had seen the film, stuck around for the conversation. Now I'll need to figure out how many of you watched the film or it's fresh in your mind because we just had a screening at one of the venues of the festival. So for those who've just seen the film, great, because I think we'll get a lot of questions coming in anyway. Those who saw it 4 years ago, great, because I think it's a memorable film. All of you will remember most of it. For those who haven't seen the film, I thought what I would do is perhaps read from a review of the film that was published in 2010. Incidentally, the next year, the year after that, Do Duni Char won the best Hindi film in the National Award, which, of course, it's been 4 years since, but I think it's a good time still to give a round of applause to Habib for that.
Thank you, thank you.
Give me just 2 seconds. I'm just locating the review. Oh, yeah, I got it. No. This is the review that was published in 2010. So this was written right after we watched the film. So to give you a sense of what the film is about for those who haven't seen it or for those who need to jog their memories. मुझे मालूम है कितनी चादर फैलानी चाहिए, cautions Mrs. Dugal, abridging a popular metaphor that's traditionally defined the self-satisfied Indian middle class. Jitni lambi chadar ho, utni hi pair phalao. Stretch your legs depending on the size of your bed sheet. Live within your salaried means. Money at a home like the Dugals is a plant to bring good luck. It usually hangs from the corner of the balcony. Rupees 7,600 in income tax returns is both cause for celebration and serious discussion over what to buy. The young daughter eyes an iPod they could do with a new refrigerator. Mr. Dugal, I suppose, can curtail his expenses. The generation after his children of a new consumerist India is unlikely to buy austerity for an advice. Dugal Saab is a teacher in high school, mustachioed, belly hanging loose from his waist, always in half sweater. He probably shopped from Delhi's Lajpat or Sarojini Nagar. He takes coaching classes in claustrophobic rooms to pay for his kids' first-class English schools. No compromises there. Lunch for him is a plastic tiffin carrier. His wife packs in the morning. Milton water bottle hangs around his neck at picnics and vacations. Being a guru of mathematics, his English fails him when he addresses the class, especially when angry. Both of you three stand up. You've heard that joke. I'm certain Mr. Dugal has taught you in school as well. I had one called Mr. Miglani. Resonance is complete, as is delight in the mundane. We spend years with such teachers and move on, forgetting they're still there. They may not make much money. Some earn far more respect in return. Dugal rightly says his hands have turned out engineers and MBAs who take home rupees 1.5 lakh for starting salaries. He can't even afford a car the size of a matchbox. Times have truly changed. Mr. Dugal's Bajaj, in brackets scooter, now leaves his body open in public to humiliating gaze from neighbors and relatives. Economics alone define stature. There's something eternally liberating about a quote-unquote people's car. Hitler knew this. So did Sanjay Gandhi. Ratan Tata recently figured this out. Mr. Dugal's made up his mind to buy himself a car, come what may. The means to acquire one is an issue, and this film's phenomenally entertaining, innately charming premise, executed brilliantly by some of the finest actors on screen and a surprisingly self-assured debutant director. Hindi cinema had a delightful phase of the great Indian middle-class family entertainer in the 70s. Films like Chupke Chupke, Golmaal, Baaton Baaton Mein, Ek Choti Si Baat, etc., etc. Movie buffs still take pride in recounting the number of times they watched those subtle comedies on quirks of the common man. Dibakar Banerjee's Khosla Ka Ghosla and Raju Hirani's filmography so far, Munna Bhai 1, 2, 3 Idiots, are close approximations of that genre. But these movies are too few and far between. A reason the great Indian middle-class entertainer doesn't exist now is the same as this film's sweetly addressed point. There is no such thing as a self-sufficient Indian middle class anymore. Each stratum merely aspires for the next. Honesty isn't as much a prized virtue. Consumer is king. Respect lies in the eyes of the ambitious neighbor. Your heart then goes out to the Dugals in this film and everything we've lost. Dig into this family and this film for sure. You won't be disappointed. It's a full-on paisa vasool, since that's what you only want to hear. So that was a quick memory, jogging down memory lane for you, firstly, because you made 2 films thereafter. But this was your first film, and I know this question is asked a lot to authors, Habib. How autobiographical is this film?
Oh, quite a lot. The thought of making this film started when Nano the car was launched, and there was a newspaper article in Times of India, I remember, and the way that story was done, it was basically talking about how excited middle class is about having a car which they can afford and therefore buy. And there was a photograph of a very typical family, man, woman, kid, with a helmet and a scooter. And that just got me thinking about what is so exciting about buying a car. And that thought triggered a whole lot of nostalgic thoughts of my own growing up. Where, when the first car was bought, there was so much excitement. When the first refrigerator was bought, there was so much excitement. In those times, getting an MTNL connection used to be a big luxury. There was a whole process to convince my father that we should get a phone. Finally, when we managed to convince him, then the application was given. It took about 2 months to get the number sanctioned. It used to be a 7-digit number then. We got the instrument, but there was no connection. So the instrument was lying in one corner of the house, and the 3 of us siblings, every time we would rush back from the school and just pick up the receiver and try and figure out if it is alive or not. And then the first time that it rang, there was so much excitement, but we still couldn't make the calls. It was basically a call from the lineman to check if the line was through or not. So all these thoughts were happening basically on breakfast table when I was going through this news article. And just by the end of it, all I had was, what if there is a film that is made about just buying something which we take for granted now? Communicating through phones is taken for granted now. But then at that point, when getting an MTNL connection was such a big deal. So just a line got formed about a middle class family's journey from a scooter to a car. And I must say that, at least for me, that's how I define the kind of films that I want to make, are the kinds of films that I like to watch. And the films that I like to watch are films which are um, about simple victories. And just to give you examples, films like Little Miss Sunshine, Juno, these stories really excite me. And somewhere, just in this journey of a middle class family from a scooter to car, I saw a kind of a resonance of the kind of films that I'd like to watch, and that would possibly be a film that I would want to make. And so I shared this germ, this line, this idea with my wife. Do you think it'll make an exciting film? And she said, but that's so thin. How will you make a film out of it? So then started the process of who would this family be. And the more I thought about it, the more memories from my own past would just sort of come out. And so I thought, why don't I design this family like my own family? And so that's how Mr. Duggal became a teacher. My father was a teacher to begin with in Bhopal. And I have had many experiences because of his profession. I used to have the same kind of angst as Mr. Duggal's daughter. Why the hell does he have to be a teacher? He could have been some other professional and made more money. I used to be very embarrassed sitting on the pillion when he would offer to drop me somewhere. Very often, especially in Bhopal, we would run into ex-students who would be so full of love and warmth for him, and they would have, after finishing school and graduation, would be these professionals making a whole lot of money. And here is my father, who is still dealing with his provident fund and gratuity, and how would he figure out his pension. Only when I became much older and then fell in love with him all over again, did I realize the love in these ex-students and the warmth that they had for him. So in that sense, it just became very autobiographical. Although there were no plot points like that, I can't say it's a film based on the Khans, but whole lot of incidents and emotional moments have been lived in some sense.
So is there any particular scene from the film that you can ascribe to something that really happened to your life from the movie itself?
My father, to make extra money, my mom was a homemaker. She had done her bachelor's, and in those days to have done a bachelor's was a big deal. After they got married, she had wanted to work, and then they figured out between the two of them that she will become the homemaker and he will go and earn the money, and that's how they did the division of labor. But it was a constant line that I used to hear, कि अगर आज मैंने अगर तब तुमने मुझे काम करने दिया होता तो फिर आज ये होता. And that's exactly what Neetu Singh says. I tried to retain the spirit of my parents in some sense, that because they were not bitter about these things. There was always a Pathani sense of humor in dealing with whatever they had been through in their life. And I see a major overlap between Punjabi sense of humor and a Pathani sense of humor. So
We are in Punjab right now.
Yeah. And in some sense, both of them are Pathans and both of them are Punjabis. So I tried to retain that that sense of laughing it off. whatever issues that they used to deal with. Likewise, in the climax of the film Doduni Char, he runs into this ex-student, which used to happen very often. And like I said, depending on what stage of maturity in my life I was, there was a point when I used to be very embarrassed when these ex-students would come in. They would be glowing about, Are Khan sir, this is what you used to do in the classroom, and how great it was, and Khan sir would be just swelling with pride at that moment. So depending on my level of maturity,
between the father and the children, whereas here it seems like everyone has an equal say in every decision of the family. Is that something that was conscious because that's the kind of family you want to show, or just happened?
in some sense, we were that. At times we were not, so it was like a fantasy family that you would want to be part of. So in some sense, it was a fantasy that I was living through the girls. And it's interesting what you're saying about the patriarchal structure of the Duggal wants to be in control. Duggal wants to be the father, but nobody takes him seriously. And they love him, but they know that he's just this. He's just a balloon with a lot of hot air in himself, and he's cuddly, and he's you can squeeze him like a balloon. But so he will try to dictate, but it'll be so easy to just make him melt. And in that, there are a lot of parallels with my father. Yes, in a big way, what I was also wanting to do was that my father was a very, very decent man. And somehow I have seen that in the recent past, decency is not celebrated in cinema. At least popular cinema. There is something about making the wicked heroic. And I wanted to make decency cool. And I wanted to make that something that you would want to aspire to. And so yes, each character has its, her own flaws. But the underlying dominant trait of these characters is their decency. Right. And I wanted to celebrate that in a big way. And I see that that is one thing about the Aam Aadmi of a country like us, which is we see all kinds of shortcuts all around us, but we somehow hold on to that decency. My theory is for two reasons. One is that we are decent, also that we are scared. We are not able to take the shortcut because we are scared that we will get caught. But with so much easy money that is being made all around us, so much easy power that is being acquired, it is very easy to get tempted and follow that route. And somehow in a popular culture, those shortcuts are what are celebrated, and those shortcuts become heroic. And I wanted to say that Do Aur Do Char is also something to celebrate, and not Do Aur Do Panch.
Right. But it's not like we have the best law enforcement in the country in general because of the number of people and the sheer inadequacy of any police to deal with crimes of any nature, but we still tend to have fewer crimes than you would imagine. So maybe it's innate rather than out of fear, or is it fear of God perhaps?
That's just my theory, that it's a combination of being honest and decent, so that's innate. But the decent and the honest get very easily scared even by a police force or a law and order system which is not effective. So if you are decent and innate, honest innately, right, you get scared easily.
Right. You know, also at the core of your film, Habib, is materialism or consumerism. That's really what's driving this family towards buying a car somehow or the other.
And I'm not judging that.
Not
I'm
at all.
not putting that
Not
down.
at all. And your trigger was the nano car. I find it quite intriguing or almost ironic that when nano car came out, most families chose not to buy it because they tagged them as the guys who own that 1 lakh rupees car. Isn't that ironic from the perspective of your film?
I mean, that is what drives middle class. That is what drives middle class to aspire for the next level always.
Right.
Yeah, so you're right about that.
So nobody really wanted to buy the Nano because it came with the price tag. Take us through the process of the film. Did you, when you were writing it, did you always think of someone? Did you cast someone in your head for the lead characters, your father and the mother?
No, at the time of writing, I was just trying to recreate my own childhood. I've grown up in a space called Jangpura in Delhi, which is a hardcore Punjabi colony. I've grown up going to the Gurdwara every Sunday and having the langar dal, and all my idiom and excitement for language has sort of gotten formulated in Jangpura. So I was trying to recreate that space as much as possible. I was trying to recreate the two-bedroom, you can't even call it a flat because it was part of a bungalow. So it didn't have a structure of an apartment. So I was trying to recreate that space, and I was trying to recreate this family. Having 3 siblings would have just made a crowd,
Right.
so I chose 2 and sort of collapsed characters of the 3 siblings into 2. So at the time of writing, I was trying to, those real people from Jangpura were what, and I didn't even want to locate it in Old Delhi or Latin's Delhi. I wanted to locate it in this Delhi which is hiding somewhere in the shadow of a flyover or a metro track. And so the gleaming track and the gleaming metro is what is catching your eye, but somewhere down there the Delhi carries on. So I was trying to recreate that. So therefore, I did not want to have any actors in my mind at the time of writing. So only after the scripting process was done, then I was trying to think of an actor who can look as roly-poly as my dad used to, especially sitting on a roly-poly Priya. The production designer had a really bad time because I wouldn't even settle on a Chetak because Chetak had more hard edges. I wanted it to be a Priya because Priya is absolutely gol matol. So, and so the only actor who could have looked like my father was Rishi Kapoor. So that just became the choice, and thank God he agreed.
Right. It may be an obvious choice in your head, but it's not such an obvious thing in his head for sure.
Neither in his head or nor any filmmaker's head, because first when I thought of him, then when I distanced myself from that instinct, I thought Rishi Kapoor has never been out of his space of educated, classy, glamorous kind of characters. Would he know this world? Would he know this space? But then I was so confident about knowing the space that I thought if he does agree, then I'll workshop him into understanding it. And the amazing thing was that the first time when I met him and I narrated the story to him, even though he would not have ever known this space or this world, but I guess that is the thing about the script that works, that it's got this whole universal element of aspiring for something and the way the relationships are. So through the narration, he would keep talking about his relationship with his sister and his relationship with his son and his daughter. So even though there was no overlap with the demographics of Duggal and demographics of Rishi Kapoor could find so many things to relate to. And yes, of course, any actor is challenged to come out of their comfort zone. So he was game in the first narration itself.
And what about the ensemble cast in the film?
Convincing Neetu Singh took time, not because Neetu Singh was difficult to convince, but to convince Mr. Rishi Kapoor to let me talk to Neetu Singh took some time. Because, you know, they've had a history of Kapoor daughter-in-laws not acting, and she had not been acting for some time. But then I am a stubborn Pathan, and I held on to that, and almost every second day I would bring up her name as Kusum. So finally he gave in. And the first time it was narrated to her, she was also game.
What about the other actors in the film?
Yeah, everyone else is cast from Delhi.
Are they all professional actors?
Some of them have done
The
theatre.
Halwai guy in the end, and
Yeah, some of them have done theatre. Payal, the daughter, she's also done theatre. She's also from Delhi. The son, Deepu, was in his 11th grade in DPS RK Puram. So he's done some
which is
theatre.
also the school he goes to in the film.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah. So he had done some theatre at school. None of them have. This was all. It was the first film for all of them.
Right.
And interestingly, Neetu Singh also used to say the same thing. It's a first film for me, coming back after 30 years, which was great because she was so excited. And obviously, in 30 years, so much has changed. And
Right.
she was always fascinated with the kind of lights that we were using, and we were shooting in such small spaces.
And real locations and things like that.
And last time when she had acted, there were no vanity vans, I believe.
Okay.
So this was the first time that she was in a vanity
And she was in
van.
a low budget film.
Yeah.
Right.
So even in a low budget film, she had a vanity van.
Tell me something. What has happened in the past 10 odd years that we see so many films set in the middle class in Delhi? Is it that there's been mass of people who moved from Delhi and they're filming what they know best, or is just that the city lends itself to a certain various kind of characterizations? But like this is, I mean, one could do a whole film festival of really good, realistic Delhi films, and Do Duni Char would be one of them. There would be, to start with, Khosla Ka Ghosla, and then various others that have followed since. What according to you is the reason for this Delhi realistic genre?
I don't know if it is. I think there is a reaction to Mumbai.
Okay.
Actually, to begin with, there is a reaction to films set abroad. So that was the first reaction because I myself was a part of it. I wrote Salam Namaste, Jhoom Barabar Jhoom, Taram Pam. And so I think that whole phase of setting films abroad in a world, and it was always explained as aspirational, creating narratives which were not of the space around you, that got saturated, and filmmakers wanted to tell what they knew best and what they were excited about best. So it wasn't just Delhi happening, it was also Banaras happening,
Right.
and Bihar happening, and Bhopal happening, and interestingly, 2010 was a very interesting year, which started with Ishqiya and Udaan and Pipli Live and Do Duni Char and Ban Baja Barat. 2 Delhi films came out same year. Phas Gaye Re Obama. Now each of these filmmakers was coming from somewhere wanting to tell some story which is not Mumbai or which is not
Abroad.
New York or Australia or Mauritius or Mozambique. Uh, so, so I think primarily that is what happened, um, and so some of them ended up being Delhi as well. But what is interesting is that they were not exoticized versions of Delhi. They were all, they were not Latin Delhi, they were not old Delhi, they were all Delhi that we all know, Delhi that we have grown up in. And likewise other places also, they were, nothing was exotic, I mean actually including Dabang. So even the most expensive film and the film that made the most money came out in 2010.
Which is the same year.
Yeah, same year, 2010. So putting a Salman Khan into that space, and not exoticizing it. So to me, that is what is the, in some sense, a victory of sorts. And so therefore, now even when a film is set abroad, when a Zoya Akhtar does it, it is not exoticized as much as it used to be earlier.
Right.
So it is not so much for the landscape alone. It is for a character reason, and it is thought out, and there is a journey that happens in that space.
Right.
And therefore, I guess that much more relatable.
Also, there are a lot of filmmakers coming from Delhi to work in Bombay as well. That's something that you knew best to some extent, right? In your case, Habib, you worked primarily, I mean, even before this film happened, you worked as a writer with a lot of films that you mentioned, which were part of Yash Raj. And we should talk about Yash Raj also at some point during this discussion because it's relevant. Why would they not release this film as their own? Was it too different from what they were making back then? Because that's not true anymore. Why would you not release it through those guys? Did they not like the script? Or did you approach them at all?
Oh yeah, they were. They were approached. They wanted to, and there are a whole lot of there's a whole lot of mathematics that happens in film distribution once a film is made, and for whatever reason that mathematics did not work out. So, but yeah, they were very keen. And they were equally excited about the film. So it wasn't that they did not want to. It just so happened that it fell in Disney's lap.
So did you have a tough time with your script, trying to figure out producers because you were on your own right after, right?
Well, actually, no, I got lucky. With the script, I went to a group called Plan Man Motion Pictures. They had made a film called Mithya before that, and a Rituparno Ghosh film last year. And I don't know, for whatever reason, they got excited about doing it. I knew that I'll do it in shoestring budget. The only thing expensive would be Mr. Rishi Kapoor. So,
his wife?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, but I just got lucky. There's nothing dramatic by way of the struggle that happened to get
So,
a
but you know,
producer.
following your career thereafter, because this was the first film that you directed, although you've written few films before, and you've also been writing aside of direction also for Yash Raj in particular. The two films that you did thereafter, one was Ishq Zadeh and the other one that just released, Dawat-e-Ishq. I think setting has become a very important element of your films. You've set one in Uttar Pradesh, and you know you've gone like full on deep into what the place would look like, in the same way that you've done with Delhi in Do Dunicha, and then you set this one in Hyderabad and in Lucknow. Is that, do you see the setting as a character, because it's easier to do it now because you don't have to shoot in or abroad to shoot?
Yeah, I have always been very fascinated. I guess a lot of that has to do with I love traveling and traveling not so much in terms of the landscape, but in terms of the people. I have worked as a camera person for NDTV, And those 5 years were great because I really got a chance to travel. I mean, the kind of places that you would not imagine going to. And in that process, I really got to see all kinds of terrains and met all kinds of peoples and saw all kinds of life rhythms, tragedies and victories um, and so so the spaces, um, people and spaces for me they come together. Um, you know, a space is not a space on its own, just as a landscape. Neither is a person on his or her own, minus the space. So in that sense, they do come together. And I was very lucky to be born in Bhopal. I was just 6 months old, and my parents moved to Delhi. So I grew up in Jangpura, and every summer vacation, which used to be fairly long, 2 months long, was spent in Bhopal. So in my growing up years, there was all this excitement of the Punjabi rhythms that were happening in Jangpura, and very, very Bhopali rhythms that were happening in Bhopal. And I found both of them very, very exciting. So, so therefore, languages and humor in languages has always been a lot of fun. Um, so, so I try to explore that. Um, and because I had gotten bored of the North India, I chose to go to Hyderabad, sort of created a challenge for myself. And interestingly, my wife, she's a Tamilian Muslim. So they speak the same dialect as the Dakhini Urdu. And I have always been very fascinated by that rhythm. So therefore, I chose to tell this story in Hyderabad.
And UP?
The
The second one.
Again, I wanted to move from Punjab, and and so basically the idea is to explore a different language rhythm. I don't know where I'll go next, but something to challenge myself, so that I don't repeat
Right.
the
So,
idioms and the phrases and the.
but Habib, like if you look, if you look at your first film and the two films thereafter, clearly it's very hard to tell it's the same filmmaker, purely because it's scaled up. The first one is very autobiographical. It's slightly, and of course also in terms of scale, because you're looking at a space that you've grown up with, grown up in, and then suddenly getting into guns and the massive action sequences. And the third one, we're getting into con territory, which I'm presuming. So is it going to be harder for you as a filmmaker to make more personal films as you make more mainstream movies?
No, but they continue to remain personal. Um, Even if I had a huge studio backing me for Doduni Char, I could not have scaled it up. I could not have used a chopper to watch Mr. Duggal go with Payal on a scooter. Um, I could not have used a steady cam. What would I do with it? So even if there was scale, the scale would have gone in its promotion. Nothing in the making of the film, so to say. It would still be cast the same way. Ishaqzadeh and Dawat Ishq are as personal. See, in the case of Doduni Char, the trigger and the process of creating these characters was personal. But then at one point, it has to become universal. At one point, you need to detach yourself from that material and become the screenplay writer or the director of that material, so that you can structure it, so that you can design it, so that you can create those images out of it. So the universal in that became the position of the teachers in our society. So the triggers were personal, Likewise, in Nishak I have been through communalism through all forms, even though I have been brought up as a secular Indian and as a humanist, but I have experienced communalism in all kinds of shapes and forms. Um, and likewise, Dawat-e-Ishq, I've seen what a girl goes through. And it's not just about dowry in the case of Dawat-e-Ishq. It is what a girl goes through by just being a girl. So in that sense, there will always be personal.
So am I confusing the word personal with autobiographical in that sense?
Yeah, but like I said, even in Do Duni Char, the triggers were autobiographical. Some material came from it. But then for it to become a story that I can engage, I can't go out and say, hey, listen, look at my family album. It has to become an engaging, universal narrative.
Since we are at a Lit Fest, can you guys hear me? Yeah, I'll just give it back in a second. Okay, so since we are at a Lit Fest, and of course we should engage in some conversation which is to do with writing and how separate screenwriting would be from, say, writing a non-fiction book or writing a fiction novel, do you think those impulses of talking about this is my family album are going to be far less when you're writing a film rather than when you're actually writing a fiction in terms of a novel?
When it comes to a novel, I can talk about it only as a reader. But when I do read, I read any fiction in a novel form. It may be the author's family album. It may be very, very personal stuff. But if the concerns and the structure and the storytelling, so therefore the content and the form, has not become universal enough for me to get engaged or have some stake in it, I would not be able to read through it. So now first I'm reacting to it as a reader. So then me, the reader, then becomes the writer. In this case, me, the film viewer, becomes the director of a film or the screenplay writer, which is why I was earlier saying I strongly believe for myself that the films that I want to make are the films that I want to watch. So it has to, even if you are starting off as a family album, you can't just hold me by a collar and tell me, hey, listen, look at my family album. Your family album has experiences and has a journey which is universal enough, and therefore it is engaging people.
Right, I think I was getting to the cliched argument about how when you're writing a book, you don't have to imagine as many readers as you have to when you're making a film where crores are invested, and therefore there are far too many decision makers in the process as well.
I don't know, maybe the writers can tell us. I'm sure they are also, when I'm writing a screenplay, at that point of time I'm imagining, okay, this scene that I'm written will become these set of images, and this is how people will be watching it in the cinema hall. So I'm sure, are there writers here? Maybe you can answer that. Don't you imagine people reading what you are writing and in their own personal spaces saying, oh wow, what a great writer you are? I'm sure that same process happens.
I think what I'm getting at is
at least at the writing
stage.
At least at the writing stage, the commerce, I'm sure for most writers doesn't play that much.
Right. I mean, in mainstream films which are funded primarily on the basis of what has worked in the past, and there is no doubt that that's how it's always going to remain. What's really fascinating is that you work in the biggest mainstream production house in India, arguably. And they tend to now turn out all kinds of movies, whereas they were once known to only do one sort, which was the reaction that you're talking about. They would set their movies in the 90s abroad, aim for a certain. How do you think that change happened? How did they turn out to be perhaps the most eclectic of the production houses in India right now compared to various others? Whereas they were seen as a reason why we don't watch different kinds of movies. I'm talking about Yash Raj, of course.
I guess the films around them were changing. Decision makers themselves were also growing up. They were also getting excited about world cinema. So believe me, in Yash Raj, Wong Kar-wai is talked about as much as
Yeah, so take us through, because it's a
Iranian
gated
film.
place that no one in Bombay has a clue about. Nobody knows what goes inside Yash Raj studio.
Yeah, so Wes Anderson, Wong Kar-wai, Rajkumar Hirani, Farah Khan, Karan Johar are all talked about in the same breath, so to say. So therefore, it results in a Band Baja and an Ishaqzadeh and a Dhoom 3 and a Dhoom 2, all from the same space.
And is there any particular space that you belong to in that whole classification?
Well, I guess each film is a new space. So Ishaqzadeh was one space, Dawat was another space. Then the third film will be some other
Do you want to
space.
talk about your next one?
No,
It's too early,
right
yeah.
now it's all.
Right. Habib, are you a self-taught a screenwriter? Is that something you learned on your own, or did you go to school, or?
No, I did my master's from a university called Southern Illinois University, where we did screenplay writing. But after doing that, I got more excited about camera work, and I did that for 5 years, documentary camera work.
That's when you were with NDTV.
Yeah.
Right.
And then when our news channels started becoming GECs, and they started putting music to news, is when I thought I should go to real fiction and not this pseudo fiction.
It's a more honest job.
Yeah. So then I moved to Bombay and I did a television serial for ZTV. And
As a camera person, or were you directing?
no, I was the series director for that. In that process, the kind of writing that was happening was, especially the dialogue writing, was almost as if somebody was dipping into a bank of dialogues with Ehsasat and Jazbat and ready-made phrases. So I would work with them and try to bring language that is more spoken and not from a bank of dialogues, which is where I got sort of excited to go back to it. And so then I did more and more of that along with the writers. And when you're doing a television serial, you're just writing episodes and episodes.
Right.
So in that process, it sort of the bug bit me to sit and write.
Do you write in Roman alphabets, or do you write in?
I tried iLeap, but the process was so cumbersome, and the thoughts were coming quicker and faster than the process itself. So then I went back to writing in Roman.
So you write Roman English or Roman Hindi/Urdu?
No, it's basically the dialogue part,
Right.
which is in Hindi.
Huh.
The rest of
Is in
your
English.
stage instructions, screen instructions are all in English. So the dialogue happens in Roman script.
Right. Last
So
question.
First script I had done, I had written the dialogue in English. And then when the English draft was done, I had wanted to do the dialogue, but then the director said, no, let me get an experienced dialogue writer. So then the experienced dialogue writer came into the picture, and I realized that, oh, it's the English dialogue which is being transliterated into Hindi, and it is just sounding so horrible because the syntax is English syntax, which has been put into Hindi. So then the next script that I wrote, I insisted that I will do the dialogue from the first stage itself.
But in Bombay films, do you usually find a lot of people who are equally bilingual in terms of their comfort level with English and with the language instruction, which would be Hindi?
No, not many, which is why we have this structure of screenplay writers and dialogue writers. In other countries, a script writer is the script writer because your dialogue is as much a part of the screenplay. I mean, depending on what kind of a swear word will I use, will be your reaction to my swear word. So if I have just called you an ullu ka patta, you may not get up and hit me.
Right.
But if I get to your mother, then you will do something. And then the sequence of action will be different. So therefore, dialogue is as much a part of the screenplay. But because people are not comfortable, there are many screenplay writers and then dialogue writers come into the picture. But in most of the other countries,
It's the same person.
it's the same person whose screenplay is the script
Right.
with the stage instructions and the dialogue. Yeah.
Thank you so much, sir, for that superb session. We now request Mr. Mitul Dikshit to hand over a token of gratitude to Mr. Habib Faisal and Mr. Mayank Shekhar.